welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith with. It's the interview series presented by WFPK and WFPK.org, Consequence, and the Consequence Podcast Network. Thanks as always for making your way here, checking out the series. You know what to do. Like what you see, what you hear. Hit that subscribe button. I put out 3 new interviews every single week, so it's a great way to keep up with your favorite artists. I'm excited because today I get to talk with Theo Rossi. Hello.
Hey, Kyle. How are you? Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here. Let me just first say congratulations on all the success you've been having lately. Of course, it seems like it's full on with Emily the Criminal and awards season right now. So congrats, man.
Thanks, man. Even Fonzie approves in the back. I see the bobblehead kind of knocking up and down. So
yeah, a little bit. He's thumbless. My kid broke his thumb when he was just a toddler. So
he took his thumb like Pope of Greenwich Village.
The only thing that you really need on the Fonz, and he's just got a little nub.
Yeah, nothing else matters. There's no motorcycle needed. You need the thumb. No, it's been wonderful. That film is the film that keeps on giving, and I know Aubrey and Tyler and John Hatton Ford, our amazing director. I love saying his full name, and Drew and everybody is just super excited. And yeah, we'll see. We got the Spirit Awards coming up. Aubrey's been everywhere, out doing her thing, and yeah, we're really happy about it. It's a great film.
Yeah, it is a great film, and it's it's even got the story. I mean, heck, well in the theaters, and then you get the bump from Netflix. It ends up on Obama's list of the best films. I mean, is that noticeable at the time when all that stuff comes around like that?
Well, it started off different because we got into Sundance, so we were so excited, right? We had gotten into Sundance, which is coming up, again, so almost a year ago, and we were super excited. We were like, all right, this makes sense, right? I had never been to Sundance because my whole thing is like, I love everything between action and cut. Everything else, you can keep. So I wouldn't ever go to Sundance if I didn't have a film there. So I was like, this is going to be great. So my wife and I were going to go, and Aubrey was super excited and the whole team was excited. And then Sundance went virtual. So we were like, oh, okay. And like a week before, but our film came out being the highest rated film out of Sundance, not the most buzz, but the highest rated, like critically. So we were like, oh, that's cool. And then it kind of dipped for a little. We did some press, we did some whatever. And then it went into theaters, and there was another thing there. A couple months later, it went up. But again, independent films in theaters, you got to really, hope. And, there wasn't a lot of marketing because it's a very small film and we were trying to find our way. And theaters were still in flux of kind of what was going to happen. And then, people were talking about it. The critics really liked it. And then a couple months goes by, and then it goes on Netflix, and then, through the roof with Netflix. And then obviously Obama's list was amazing. And then Deadline put in, I think, top 10 films of the year and all this. And then the Independent Spirit Awards came out. We got 4 nominations. So it just kept going. And then honestly, the biggest thing was, Aubrey, White Lotus, the finale of White Lotus was the week it came out on Netflix. So it was like this double hit of Plaza everywhere. And it just put everything through the roof. And I think that's why I have never been a part of a film that for a year, it seems like every week something else happens with the film. And you're like, wow, for a film that's not making hundreds of millions at the box office or doing whatever, it just seems to have this very long life. And I think it's a testament to what John put together.
Yeah. Well, the movie still has to stand on its own. I mean, you can have all these things line up, of course, but something is resonating. In your opinion, what is it? Why is this movie resonating so much?
I think the pendulum has swung one way, and I think it's always going to swing back to another way of like, people just want something that's good. Like they don't care. You can tell people a million times, like, you can advertise through the roof. You can say this, you can kind of, these things get put in your face of all this, but at the end of the day, is it a good film? Right. And the things that if you look at films like I love, like, we talked about this prior to recording, was, I'm an 80s and 90s kid, 80s kid. And these are films that I watched 30, 40 years later. And if you look at films like Thief with Jimmy Caan, Michael Mann's first film, or Straight Time with Dustin Hoffman, which are films that are similar to Emily, Obviously the bigger ones, the Goodfellas, the this, that, these are films that weren't made on huge budgets, but they're really good films. And it doesn't mean that everybody loves them. It just means that they're good films. You can't deny that it's a good film. I think Emily's a good film, right? And it's 90 minutes. It's just two people, and it's just constant movement. And I think that people love story at the end of the day. And I think it becomes timeless and almost becomes evergreen, not just for me, for a lot of people. We love going to, listen, I love going to Six Flags. I just can't go every day. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? I got to live in reality sometimes. And I think that we enjoy, in the films that last are kind of films like Emily. That's my thought. I'm probably wrong. I'm wrong about everything, but that's my thought.
That makes sense. It's interesting. A few of the movies you mentioned there, and I'll put Emily in this category, is there's desperation. And I think that's what I kept thinking about this throughout the movie. It's like, I mean, for one, we all face some sort of desperation too,
Yes.
and maybe not, these extremes, of course, but
Yeah.
but the way that lines up, the way the me and my wife are watching it together. In fact, she's seen it 2 or 3 times now, I think.
Amazing.
And we were talking about student loan debt. She has student loan debt,
Yeah.
and she's been out of college for a very long time now. And
Me too. Yeah.
yeah, and she says the only thing that's not as believable for her about this movie is that someone would try so hard to actually pay off that student loan debt.
Yeah. I think again, I think what you just touched on is the truest point of this film, and it's the truest point of all our favorite films, is when we can put ourselves in the position of, if it was us, what would I do? Like, what would I do if I was in this position? What would I do if I was, faced with this? And if we can do that just for a moment, in any of our favorite films, right? That's for a moment, from everything from Jaws to Goonies to Citizen Kane. If I had all that power, like, what would I do? And if you can remove yourself for a second and transplant yourself into there, that is a winning film for you, because you've put yourself in that position. Now, I think what's really interesting about Emily in that situation is we don't know what people are capable of. We see stuff all the time of what people would do. And sometimes it just takes a situation to reveal somebody's true persona. We've seen this, right? If you're in any type of business or any type of relationship, or, when the chips are down, people show who they really are, right? So maybe there was something about Emily, this frustration of who she was, that when she was confronted or introduced to or seduced by a certain world, it revealed who she truly was. And that's the reverse for Yusuf, right? When he finally found an olive branch of like humanity, he realized who he truly was. So I think that role reversal, but I think really what your wife and you experienced, and many others, because I had student loan. I didn't pay off my student loan until I got Sons of Anarchy in 2008. I was a working actor for 8 years and I couldn't pay off my student loan. There was just no way. It was insurmountable. But, would I have gotten into credit card fraud? Sure. If somebody presented it to me, if I could have paid off my debt, you do what you got to do. But I think that our favorite type of films is that replacement of what would we do. And I think that this provides that to a lot of people who have been faced with any type of desperation or feeling up against it in a way.
Well, especially, echoing what you're saying too, to see so many things stacked up against both of these characters, that no matter what they try, for whatever needs they have to go through, it just keeps getting you. And that's real life. That's the real story, and that's like, I can joke about it, paying off debts or whatever, but what do you do when all that stuff? Of course you would turn to that type of thing.
And the interest and everything's against you. The interest rates are through the roof, right? You're literally, there's no way when you calculate it in your head that you go, there's no way I'm going to pay this off. It's impossible unless I hit the lotto, which is most likely rigged anyway. So I'm probably not going to hit the lotto either. So it's like, what am I going to do here to get this? And then if someone presents you with an opportunity that goes, well, here's a way you can pay it off in 1 month. And you go, 1 month? I wouldn't pay this off in 100 years. Well, there's risk involved. Again, that's where people, I've always said, and I've been around it I don't even ever want to say unfortunately. I've been around pretty much every single type of criminal activity my whole life, and I've never seen anybody who wants to do crime. They do it because there is no other option. There is no other opportunity. There's no other situation. So it's like once you're presented with something and it's a quick fix, human nature is survival.
Yeah. You've talked about that a little bit, in your younger days, having played a little bit on the darker side of things. What was it that brought you out then? Like, how did you get out of that?
Opportunity for something else, but by full-blown accident. I had no discernible other skills. I basically meandered my way through university, through college, by paying people to do my papers while I hustled and made money. I was fully okay with living that life for the rest of my life because I didn't know any other way. So it was going to be one of two things, right? It was either going to be a type of, physical job, construction, or, laying carpets like I did in high school and doing anything to do in that way. Or I can get a city job, right? Take a test and, do that. But I was already a little late to the game because most of my friends were getting in that at 21, taking the fireman's test, the sanitation test, or the police test. And that was great too, because in your mind, you go, well, I'll do my 20 years. I'll be out at 41. I'll have, get out on, I'll have my pension. I'll have, health benefits the rest of my life. So there's a lot of benefits to that, but you've sacrificed a certain amount of years of your life. I didn't have any other skills, but it just so happened that my friend was at an acting class, and it just so happened that I was there just to whatever. And it just so happened that I stuck around, and it just so happened that someone came in to cast this independent film. Still didn't know what I was doing. For the first few years of my career, I didn't know what I was doing. But once I realized, I just happened to be at the right acting school, which was Lee Strasberg in Manhattan, 15th and 5th. And the Strasberg method, which is based on Stanislavski, which is based on Uta Hagen, which is replacement method of things you've been through. So as the great Bill Duke said, and I've said this before, acting isn't pretending, it's becoming. So if you can pull from your own life and you can have things, you have richer characters. So acting is, once I realized that, where I was like, wait a second. So anything that I've experienced, I can somehow use to my ability. Okay, well, that's cool. I have that. I have life experience. Now I just need technique. So that opportunity got me into that because I didn't really know how to do anything else. And I didn't have anybody else telling me what to do. I was just kind of floating. And I started acting late. I didn't really get my first full professional jobs till I was like 24. Yeah. So again, it's just opportunity. And that's why I always say there's so many people out there that aren't presented with opportunity. When you go back to Emily was presented with an opportunity, and Yusuf was presented with an opportunity, and they chose their way they were going to live. One, it worked out, one, it didn't. Well, maybe it worked out. We don't know yet.
Yeah. I mean, and with no spoilers, I mean,
sure.
As I usually say, if you don't see the body, then nobody's dead.
And we filmed other stuff. So that was it was supposed to be different.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah. It was supposed to be different.
All right. Go the old days with the DVD extras.
Yeah, I love that. My favorite stuff, right? We were just talking about that, my wife and I, when watching the DVD commentaries where directors would talk and the actors would talk over it, and you get so much insight. I mean, for a young actor back in the early 2000s, that was like my goal. That was like going to school for me. I would get these DVDs of films and I would just watch. Before I would watch the movie, I would watch the behind the scenes, and I'd be like, oh my God, did you hear what they said about this scene? Or they would show, I remember certain DVDs would show like the anatomy of a scene. It would show how an actor did it 6 or 7 different ways. And I'd be like, wow, you can do that. So I learned more from the bonus materials on DVD than I did in like any class ever.
Yeah. No, the document, I will agree. The documentary on movie making, on a specific movie or television show, to me is usually as important as the piece itself. I'm like that with what's that?
Hearts of Darkness, the Apocalypse Now one, the documentary is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah. I'm like that with music too, though. It's like if I have the album, which I'm surrounded by over here, I'm going to be reading the liner notes as much as the lyrics, as much as anything. You know, I don't know what, like, we're nerds. I don't know, but
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know what that is, but I get it. I get
I
that.
love that. And then what was it? VH1 had behind the music,
Oh
or what
yeah.
was it?
Yeah. They have behind the
Like when the
music.
band, not the making of the band, or whatever it was, when things went wrong.
Right. And that was, if you were on an episode of Behind the Music, things didn't go well for you at some point. It
Things
was never
did
like,
not go well.
what a
You're
great
like,
time they
wow.
had.
Yeah, you're like, I didn't know Hall and Oates had so much trouble. You know, it was you would learn these things and be like, oh, that's what happened to Warren, or that's what happened, you know, and you just fascinating. I mean, to me, the behind the scenes stuff, and I'm one of these people that a long time ago decided to dive super deep into the history of Hollywood and kind of, you know, all the behind the scenes stuff. And I was just having a talk with one of my best friends that was 8 and business partner about 10 minutes before our conversation now. And I was saying I just had engulfed like 5 audiobooks in the month of December. It was like Paul Newman's, Nick Nolte's, Betty Davis, Quentin Tarantino, Cinema Speculation, and then I just finished Bernie Brillstein's book, right, from Brillstein Management, who's no longer with us. And every one of them, they were all brilliant. Oh, Gene Wilder's too.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, they were all brilliant. But here's the one thing that I noticed from all of them: multiple divorces, some type of drug and alcohol problem, some type of something in their life suffered greatly, right? So while we celebrate the greatness, we're not thinking about all the other stuff that went to shit. And that's what you get when you see the book. So while we, you know, especially in the culture that's, you know, the way we associate it now, it's like we look at all this stuff and like the great films and the great performances and the great this, and there's so many of these people that are just like suffering, you know, behind it in other things. And I've always been fascinated by that. You know, the Van Gogh and cutting off the ear. It's like, you got the great art, but you don't got the ear. And it's like, oh,
Humanizing the myth in a way.
yeah, yeah. And also, you know, and also for people who watch it, knowing that, you know, it's just a job, right? And it's these people that are suffering the same exact thing. So for me, I was really fortunate because I got to live, and I still get to live, you know, a really great life outside of it, and a real life. And I think that what I try to do with all my characters and with all my projects is humanize them. And I think that what happens a lot is that people who get, whether it be sports players, singers, it happens a lot with singers, right? Especially in big rock bands, and, you know, movie stars, is they get walled off and they don't experience life anymore. And you'll see as they get older, their performances are not the same. And it's because they're so walled off from reality. And I think why Emily touches a lot of people is when they watch it is because it's real. It feels real, right? And it feels like people going through what everybody's going through. And for me, those are my favorite type of movies. I do love escapism sometimes, but I also love escapism that's kind of based in reality, you know, for like the Goonies.
Right. Well, and you know, as we talk about it too, your character in Emily, has such this natural charm with that shyness on top of it.
Yeah.
How did you envision him?
You know, I envisioned him like the way I saw a lot of, you know, family members. The first thing I did, and a lot of people that I grew up with, was the first thing I noticed was unresolved dreams. I mean, I forget, I think it's the movie The Bronx Tale that says there's nothing worse than wasted talent, right? I think that's the movie that says it. But what it is that a lot of people, especially in today, don't explore what they really want to do, but they have it burning like inside of them every day. And in those quiet moments, you know, whether it be when they're in the shower, or whether it be right before they fall asleep, or whether it be when they go for a walk, they're thinking about it. It overrides everything they're thinking about, but they never go for it. What I found is that with Yusuf was he wanted to be someone else, but he was under Khalil. He was obligated to get his mom a better life. He wasn't being who he truly wanted to be. And she gave him like a moment to be himself. And for me, it all culminated in that one scene when they're at that apartment that he's showing her that he wants to buy. And he has this human moment with her. And she allows him to not be the aggressive, hard, criminal in a way. And I think that we all want that in our lives. We want to chase what we want. We know life is a blank, right? We know it's over fast. We hear all this shit all day, but we still don't do it because we have so many obligations that we're obligated to. So when I first attacked Yusuf, it was like, this is a guy who has obligations, and he's not chasing his dream of who he wants to be. And that creates a shyness. So every time she unearths something in him, it's going to give him a little more personality to her. And again, at the end of the day, in this game of acting, every single thing you do is about the person you're across. Aubrey and I, from the second we spoke, it was like, oh, okay, we're supposed to do this. It's supposed to be me and you, and we're supposed to have this. And we're both very honest. We're both very upfront. We don't suffer fools lightly. We have no time for nonsense. We want to live our lives. We want to be great at this. We want to do our best, and we don't care about anything else. This is it, right? It's our families, it's our spouses, it's our animals, and it's that, right? And that's what we want to do. So we knew right away we were on the same page. So that gave us a trust, not just in Aubrey and Theo, but in Yusuf and Emily. And I think that is why it worked, personally.
And I feel like you do so much with your eyes. It's almost like, people say with jazz, it's what happens to the space between the notes. And there's so many moments there where I'm just looking at you and nothing's being said, but everything is being said. It's
my favorite. And again, as someone who watches so much stuff, and especially from 1980 and under, it's like my favorite stuff is when people aren't talking. You can watch performances, again, we just so happened to name one of the baby goats that was just born Betty Davis for a reason. I mean, Betty Davis is someone, Claude Rains, even to go newer age actors, right? Obviously the greats, but Joaquin does it. There's certain people that just they don't need to say a word, and they're doing everything. And sometimes words get in the way. And I've been way more fascinated over my career by people who can do it by looks and by mood and by movement, because I think everybody talks too much, to be honest. We're in a society that talks too much,
as we say on this interview here. We're self-aware, it's fine. And for the chatter we had before the interview, and you talking about being a fan of 80s and stuff like that before, I did want to ask, you're now also part of the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
What's that experience like? Because just knowing that history, right?
So when I tell you that I'm living in a different time, they say born too late in a world too old, is just to give you an idea of how bonkers I might be. Whenever I have a spare moment, I have 2 little kids, and again, we have tons and tons of animals here, so I'm basically just cleaning up chicken and goat shit all day. But when I'm not doing that, I watch on YouTube. I don't know if anybody knows about this, but you can pick certain years and watch 4 hours straight of commercials from those years.
I've done it.
So I do it all day. I visually like to see it, but if I can't, I'll just listen to it in my headphones as opposed to music. And I'll pick a year, 86, 88, 91, 93. And then I'll take it a step further, is on Saturday mornings, because I really want, I have 2 sons, 5 and 7. They're amazing. Kane and Arlo, or as they call themselves, the Wolf Kings, is what we do on Saturday is on YouTube. You can pull up say 1993 Saturday morning cartoons with commercials, and it'll be all of it from a certain station. And that's what we do. They watch Saturday morning cartoons from the throwback era, and the best part for them to watching it is the commercials. They'll see Mad Balls. They're obsessed with Mad Balls now, and Garbage Pail Kids, and all this stuff.
Oh God, don't show them the movie. Garbage Pail.
That thing will scar them for life. But they love doing that. So the reason is when I got Tales of the Jedi, my buddy was directing the episode, and he told me, hey, you want to do this? I said, say less, as the kids say. I said, say no more. I'll be there wherever. I don't care what I'm playing. And obviously it was Senator Larkin with Dooku and Mace Windu. And I was like, I don't get to see the animation when I'm doing it. I just do the voice. And then he sent me the animation when it was done. And just to be in there. Now, I have a lot of issues with Star Wars as of late, but like we all do, right? If you're a fan of it, as you do, especially if you're a kid who grew up, with the originals, makes me really appreciate the prequels, by the way. But all that being said, the Tales of the Jedi is so cool because again, we go in, it's like a behind the music. It's like we were talking about earlier. You go into like, oh, the before. I've always been really intrigued by when we know a character and then the mythology of them, especially Pre's. How did this happen? What was Luke like on Tatooine before? Even if it's just his daily, like, did he work out? What did he do? Like, so to be a part of that was really cool. And it was the same thing when we did Luke Cage and, to be in the Marvel thing and, and Sons kind of created its own like graphic novel world. I think that, I love that stuff because it's what like I just said with my kids and with me, it's what I respond to as here we are 30 years later, whatever it is, I still respond to that stuff. So I'm very curious if there's anything that in 30 years will hold that test of time.
Well, that's I love talking about this because, to be a fan of lost things, especially lost media. Like I've done the YouTube thing you're talking about. I'm sitting next to a complete box set that I just bought from eBay of National Geographic, every issue on CD-ROM. CD-ROM, by the way.
Amazing.
That's
amazing. And again, that's media that, will, if we can't find it, and again, people would go, so what's the big deal? You'll find it. No, if you can't find it, if someone didn't copy it to YouTube, if someone didn't, like I was just watching, there was an old video footage of Babe Ruth taking batting practice. And I was like, wow, this is fantastic, right? Like that someone has this. And again, YouTube is a place where you can find some stuff, but there's also stuff you might not find from your childhood that you kind of remembered. So having those physically somewhere is really impressive. And I do that with, I have all these old magazines from like the 70s and 80s, all different kinds. And when I'm reading them, I'm not necessarily reading them for what was in the articles. It's more for the ads.
The ads. Yeah.
I'm like, what? A Ford Focus was $2,100. Yeah. I'm like, fully loaded, or like the hi-fi system where they had these giant speakers and so again, it's more of like, because things never really change. They just kind of morph a little. It's everything. It's always the same. The human condition is the same thing. So if you know kind of where you come from, you kind of know where you're going. And I think that to me is like so fascinating with Hollywood as an example is there's so many young artists that don't watch like golden age stuff or, 70s new Hollywood stuff or whatever. And I think that it's their choice. Anybody can do what they want, whatever gets you through the day. But I also think they're robbing themselves of kind of people that have been there and done that. And you're looking at it's the same thing. It's the same great performance. You can watch Cate Blanchett and Tar, and then you can watch Jenna Rollins and a Women Under the Influence and go, oh, got it. I see. And this is 40 years later. I see. And I think that there's just something to that. And again, as having like basically a lab experiment, my 5 and 7-year-old boys who respond to Ghostbusters more than they respond to stuff now. Why? Ghostbusters 1984, right? Why are they responding to this film that's 40 years ago more than stuff that's now? There's something in there that's getting them to want to watch it over and over and over again. So I think that for me, I think I'm such a student of the past because it gives you all the answers to the future.
Yeah. I love knowing that. And I love knowing that you even bring that to your characters in a way.
Oh, it's the way I start with everything. I mean, one of the first things I do in any character, like literally one of the first things, I don't know if it's a secret or not, but who cares? Nobody ever told me anything when I was young. So if anybody can benefit from it, great. Is I think, what's their age? And then I go, okay, this is their age. So the most influence we are, just from what I've learned from psychologists, is from the age of 14 to 24. That's the music we listen to for the rest of our lives. Mm-hmm. It's kind of the way we kind of want to dress if it's acceptable. We try to find, it's our main source of entertainment, 14 to like 24, maybe 15 to 25, depending on where you grew up. And you use that. So I'll go back and go, okay, he's this age, so he probably listened to nu metal, or he probably listened to, he was listening to this kind of music. And then I'll create that playlist. And then for the duration of the shoot, I'm only listening to that music. I'm only watching TV from that time. I'm only watching, because that's going to craft who the person is. And it's the only way I know how to do it. I have to do it like that, because I know that for me, at my age, I'm a direct reflection of who I was from 15 to 25. That shaped who I was. It shaped the cars I like, the music I like, the food I like, everything. So it's like, I have to do that, and it keeps me connected to the past because it alerts my future.
Well, it's obviously made a difference, and I mean that's Emily the Criminal, another, like I said, fantastic thing that you've done here. Theo, thank you so much for taking the time to talk about this. I would love to nerd out with you for a few more hours on the past. Hopefully we can do that sometime in the future.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it so much. And it was really great to meet you, and I appreciate the time, and enjoy your day.
And thanks to my guest. Also, thanks to you for checking out the episode in the series. Before you get out of here, hit that subscribe button. Again, you get 3 brand new interviews every single week. New one every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at right here on YouTube, or of course anywhere in podcast land, including iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, NPR, or WFPK.org as well. A great way to keep up with your favorite artists and discover new ones as well. Then after that, actually head over to WFPK.org. That's where I do a show Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern. It's an hour full of song premieres, music news, anniversary spins, bonus interviews, Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern at WFPK.org. Consequence has your music and film news. You can also find me on the social media spots, Facebook, Instagram, mostly on Twitter. All 3 of them, the address is at Kyle Meredith. Do hope you like and follow along. That does it for another edition. I'm Kyle Meredith. I'll see you next time.